Heading into Sunday, the Seahawks had not won a game at Lumen Field since last November. It's safe to say that they brought that drought to an end in emphatic fashion against the Saints. I'll be breaking down a blowout victory at Lumen Field coming up next here on our latest post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there tuning in, whether you're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, or nearby in Sumner, Washington. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We have great support for all of our everydayers. The Seahawks getting a win streak going in an emphatic fashion on Sunday, a game that it felt like the Saints didn't know had started until they were down 21 points. It truly was a proverbial avalanche that the Seahawks were able to push onto the Saints today. Again, they were down or up 21-0 less than 9 minutes into this game. The offense, the defense, the special teams, everybody contributing to that ambush at the beginning of this game. If anybody wondered if this was going to be a trap game that the Seahawks were going to come out flat in, they proved right out of the gate that was not going to be the case. They got a few lucky breaks early that got the snowball rolling a little bit, but what a performance by Mike Macdonald's squad. When you look at the stats coming out of this game, Seattle wins 44-13. The stats in terms of traditional stats, Seattle only had 233 passing yards. New Orleans had 205. Both teams had one turnover. The Saints actually won the time of possession battle, which surprised me because Seattle held onto the ball quite a bit in the second half. But a lot of that was quick possessions early that Seattle was immediately cashing in for touchdowns. The Saints had a ton of penalties. Seattle had 8, so it's not like they weren't penalized at all. But at one point, they were up 44-6 going into the fourth quarter, 38-point lead. So this game really was not in doubt. About 9 minutes into this game, it felt like the Seahawks were going to run away with it. The Saints were not able to really throw back much of a counterpunch. They got a field goal that made it 21-3. And the Seahawks did not keep their foot off the gas pedal. And as Mike Macdonald said after the game, I think the biggest storyline coming out of this contest, Jay Harbaugh and the special teams unit for the Seahawks, that might have been the best all-around special teams game that I have seen by a Seattle Seahawks team, at least in my lifetime. You can go back to 2010. There was a game against the Chargers that maybe ranks up there, that Leon Washington had a couple of returns for touchdowns. But this game had everything you could possibly ask for as a special teams coach. Seattle's up 7-0 after a Jackson Smith-Njigba touchdown catch. Saints punt, ensuing possession. Torrey Horton shows off his 4.3 speed, untouched, 95 yards for a touchdown on the ensuing punt return. Longest punt return in Seahawks franchise history. So there's the first big play. Next drive, D'Anthony Bell, who was a practice squad elevation this weekend, second straight week, untouched off the edge, blocks a punt. Seattle doesn't recover it, but it's still their football in the red zone. They come back a couple plays later, and they score. Ken Walker punches into the end zone. Seattle's now up 21-0, just like that. And the special teams kept coming through as the game moved on. Tariq Young had a 60-yard kick return that set up a touchdown to Torrey Horton. 14-yard pass hauled in from Sam Darnold. And then you had big blocks from Chaz Surratt. You had big tackles from Brady Russell, Drake Thomas. Jason Myers 3 for 3, including a 56-yard field goal at the end of the half that made it 38-3. Everyone on special teams was dialed in. This was, again, as dominant of an all-around special teams performance as I have seen from the Seattle Seahawks in my lifetime. Before I was a reporter and during my time as a reporter, just start to finish, doing everything right. If you wanted to nitpick, they had one punt return they gave up that was big, but in the end, it didn't really matter. This was as dominant, as dynamic, as stifling of a special teams effort you're going to see. And they did it in every phase, whether it was coverage, whether it was blocking punts, returning kickoffs, every single phase on special teams. As Mike Macdonald said after the game, They set up the special teams unit. They set up 30 points directly of Seattle's 44 with the plays that were made on special teams, whether it was Myers booting kicks between the uprights, Young and Horton with long kick and punt returns, blocked punts, you name it. This group all game long, they were the ones that got things rolling. But let's not forget about what the offense and defense did in this game either. The offense, they benefited from a Brian Breezy penalty on the first drive. It was a third down incompletion, but it was a roughing penalty called after that, or unnecessary roughness penalty called after that on Breezy. Extended the drive. Darnold rolls out to his left, throwing across his body, hits Smith and Jigba for a 12-yard touchdown. Seattle had the ball in the red zone 4 straight drives, and they punctuated all of them with touchdowns. They were a perfect 4 for 4 inside the opposing 20. That is great news. The offense was efficient. Sam Darnold had a perfect passer rating until his last 2 attempts, which after the game he was lamenting. And more on that in a second. But he was 14 for 18. Passer rating still over 150 with 2 touchdowns. Throwing the ball all over the place. The receivers, they were spreading the ball around to different targets. Several guys with 20-plus yard catches. Jackson Smith and Jigba with another 45-yarder. He might have been sick, but he didn't show it out there. Nearly hit the 100-yard mark for a 3rd straight week. If this was a closer game, I'm sure he gets to that mark. But didn't play the entire 4th quarter. Didn't play some of the 3rd quarter either. So the opportunities were not there. But 7 straight possessions with points for the Seahawks on offense. And the fact they scored that touchdown right out of the gate, I know that took a big monkey off their back because they had not scored a point on their opening drive in 8 straight home games. So getting that touchdown early, that was big, and being able to get those field goals tacked on as they went later in the game and continue to expand their lead. 7 straight possessions with points. You sandwich that around Horton's punt return for a touchdown, and it's no wonder that the snowball ended up rolling out of control for the New Orleans Saints, and they had no chance in this game. And then on defense, Seahawks made plenty of plays on that side of the ball too. They held Alvin Kamara to 2.85 yards per touch in this game, under 3 yards per carry. He really was a non-factor once the game got out of hand early, 21-0. They tried to reestablish him, but at that point, they couldn't really run the ball much, and the Seahawks weren't having any of it to begin with. He had 1 catch this entire game. It was a 14-yarder that went for a first down. Other than that, though, did no damage. It was a sight to behold considering the damage that he has done to the Seahawks over the years. They shut number 41 down. He was a complete non-factor in this game. And aside from a late touchdown, only gave up a couple field goals. This defense was firing on all cylinders. They were getting pressure on Rattler, weren't getting the sacks in the first half, started to in the second half. Even if one of those had a penalty tacked onto the end that extended the drive, they were starting to finish at the quarterback, and that was noticeable in the second half. But overall, it was just a dominant effort. And going back to Darnold's comments, lamenting his last couple passes that were misfired, this team, maybe the best thing coming out of this game, you win by 31. They were set to win this game 9 minutes in with the way they started, but they exited this game, whether it was coaches, players. They know they got a game coming up Thursday night, a huge one against the Cardinals in Arizona. They're going to be going into this next game. They were not satisfied with what they did. Mike McDonald pointed out that touchdown drive at the end by the Saints and how frustrated he was about that. He didn't want to give up a touchdown. 3 drives at 10-plus plays for the Saints. There's areas they can learn from. Offensively, 8 rushing yards in the first half for the Seahawks. So that's a big thing they're going to be looking at going into Thursday. How can we get our run game going with Ken Walker third? Hopefully Zach Charbonnet's back for that game. But they've got to figure that out up front. So that's an area that they can clean up. Sam Darnold missed a few throws late. Those are the things that this team is doing right now. That's what they're doing. They're chasing edges. You are seeing the culture that Mike McDonald and John Schneider are implementing right now. That process, they are playing to that process. They are adhering to that process. And they're going to continue to look for areas that they can get better because the Cardinals are 2-1 at tough loss to the 49ers today. They're going to be looking to bounce back. Seattle's got that short window here. They don't have to focus on this game, which could end up being a good thing. You turn the page, get to that next contest, and work on the areas that you didn't play quite as well in this one. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see this team do. They're going to continue to attack. They're not satisfied. They're going to continue to find different ways, different stones to turn over to get better. But this is still a really exciting game. One of the biggest wins that the Seahawks have had in quite some time, and one of their 3 highest scoring halves in franchise history, getting 38 points on the board against the Saints today. Massive win, gets them to 2-1, and they're right back in the NFC West race. Coming up next, I'm going to be dishing out my weekly game balls on offense, defense, and special teams. Don't go away. You're listening to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. The NFL season's officially underway, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, such as how many touchdowns Ken Walker III is going to run for against the Cardinals coming up on Thursday night, building a same-game parlay with multiple prop bets for Week 4 and beyond, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks here live from Lumen Field. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks getting one of the biggest wins they've had in quite some time, a 44-13 bashing of the New Orleans Saints at Lumen Field today. 38 first half points. It was one of the 3 highest scoring halves the Seahawks have had in their franchise history. The other 2, you had to go back to 1977 against the Buffalo Bills, and in the early 2000s, the Shaun Alexander breakout game against the Minnesota Vikings, where Alexander had 5 touchdowns by himself in the first half. They scored over 40 points in the first half in those 2 games. But this one right there built that commanding 38-3 advantage. Saints were never really able to punch back at all. Let's get to the game balls from this blowout victory, shall we? And going to start on offense with, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, a player who afterwards was not necessarily pleased with the way that he finished his outing before exiting to turn in his helmet for a hat. Sam Darnold missed his last couple throws, felt like he should have completed those, but what a game number 14 had. And again, before those incompletions, you're looking at a guy who had a perfect passer rating, 158.3. He was 10 for his first 11. He was dropping dimes downfield, had a 45-yard pass to Jackson Smith-Njigba that he lofted into triple coverage and dropped it right into the bucket for a big play. And that was while getting hit, by the way. It was a roughing the passer penalty that was tacked on 15 yards on top of that. Had a couple other plays early in the game where he evaded pressure and got the ball to receivers after getting outside of the pocket. You can see that beautiful release thrown against his body that I've argued this since Seattle signed him. That is one of the big advantages of Sam Darnold. He's as good of a thrower across his body as you're going to find in the National Football League. And he showed that off today on several occasions. Had a really nice touchdown to Torrey Horton. Good coverage, better throw by Darnold to feather it in there to him. And that is what the Seahawks were hoping to get from Sam Darnold. They were going to get an efficient quarterback that had the ability to be able to extend plays with his legs. Not the most mobile quarterback, but he finds ways to get outside the pocket, and he throws well in those situations, and he's going to be efficient. And he has been that the last couple of weeks. I know he had a few turnovers early in that Steelers game, but none today. Didn't put the ball in harm's way. Finished 14 for 18, well over 200 yards, 2 touchdown passes. He didn't play the entire game either. Really is coming into his own in this offense that we expected. He had a chance to kind of hit the ground running. Didn't do that in week 1, but he knows Clint Kubiak well from their time together at San Francisco. He just seems very comfortable in this offense. He's getting the football out quickly. He's helping his offensive line from that standpoint. So to me, Sam Darnold, you could look at a few other guys on the outside that did some things, but today was all about number 14 and him getting the football around, making some challenging throws, getting the ball downfield, letting it rip, and not having any turnovers, not taking a sack. I thought Sam Darnold played a fantastic football game. So you got to give him the game ball on offense. On defense, there was a few names that I considered here, but I'm going to go with the guy that was the runner-up last week. And look, we can joke, and Mike McDonald was the one today that got to roast him a little bit about Darion Kendrick dropping an interception. 2 straight weeks he's done that, but he has more than amended for that by making interceptions later in the game each of the last 2 weeks, and he did that today, picking off Spencer Rattler. Had a really nice pass breakup where he was working down the seam that I think might have got completed for a big play, if not for, number one, getting his arm up in the passing lane and making a really nice pass breakup. He has 3 pass breakups and 2 interceptions in the last 2 weeks for the Seattle Seahawks. He came up and made a couple plays in the run game as well. You're seeing a guy that is embracing his opportunity in Seattle. He's definitely eclipsed my expectations. I wasn't sure if he could fit in the slot position, but he is doing a really good job both in man and zone coverage with his assignments. He's constantly around the football. He's helping out against the run. Devin Witherspoon comes back. Obviously, he's not going to have the same role, but the Seahawks might find a way to get him some snaps out there in their nickel and dime packages because he has earned those opportunities with how well he's played the last 2 weeks. And I just thought he was the most impactful, most disruptive player for the Seahawks today, with honorable mention being to players like Byron Murphy II. Maybe you can make an argument. Josh Jobe didn't have his best game of the season, but he still made some really good plays, had an excellent pass breakup in the end zone. A number of guys that had standout games holding the Saints to 13 points. I thought Leonard Williams was really disruptive, but Darion Kendrick, to me, was the most impactful player on Seattle's defense today, which is saying something with the role that he's filling, the player he's replacing right now, for him to keep exceeding expectations and playing at such a high level, as Mike McDonald called it, winning football. They're getting that right now from Darion Kendrick. And maybe the toughest one today because of how many great plays there were on special teams. Usually when a guy sets a franchise record for the longest punt return, that's automatically going to give you the game ball. But D'Anthony Bell blocked a punt. Jason Myers booted a 56-yarder. Jarick Young had a scintillating kick return as well. But I've still got to give it to the rookie. And maybe also it's because Torrey Horton had a receiving touchdown on top of that. But I just thought that play, it encompassed the talent that we expected to see from a healthy Torrey Horton. I loved what I saw from this kid at Colorado State, and I've been saying this since pre-draft. I remember Rob Rang and I discussed this when we were looking at receiving prospects in the pre-draft process. I thought Torrey Horton was a late first, early second round caliber player, but the injury he was coming back from was a significant one, and there were questions about his health. Was he going to be ready for the upcoming season? And he didn't get to do a lot of the pre-draft workouts. So that dropped into the 5th round, and what a steal that is proving to be for the Seattle Seahawks. Not just what he's doing on offense, but that punt return. As he said after the game, I don't know that a lot of guys are going to get a green light there to field a punt at the 5-yard line, but he had space. The Seahawks are confident in his judgment. He knew he had space. He got the blocks in front of him, and then you saw the legitimate low 4.3 speed. I think that's what he would have ran if he was healthy, completely 100% healthy in the pre-draft process. Those long strides and just rocketing past guys today, like getting that 95-yard return. And then you add the 14-yard touchdown catch on top of that. I know it's offense, but that's going to be the deciding factor for me. That was just, that play really set the tone, even though it was already 7-0. It made it clear this is going to be a long day for the New Orleans Saints. And I thought Torrey Horton was the one that was able to kick that into motion. Had a couple other punt returns that he's kind of becoming that guy where every time he touches the ball in punt returns, you just kind of hold your breath. Like, is he going to do something crazy? Because that's the kind of talent that he is. That's how elusive, how fast he is. Had a couple other punt returns today where it was kind of waiting for him to rip another long one off. And he just does that. Every time he's got a chance to field the ball, you think there's a chance that he's going to make something exciting happen. And you got to see the punt return today. A couple other nice returns mixed in there as well. This guy is becoming a true weapon on offense and special teams for the Seattle Seahawks. Up next, going to shift gears to our weekly stock watch. Who's hot, who's not, 3 up, 3 down. That'll be coming up next here on our post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. Welcome back to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks, live here from Lumen Field. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s tuning in, and thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks now have a winning streak, 2 straight. This one not near as much drama as last week in Pittsburgh, at least for 3 quarters there at Acrisure Stadium. The Seahawks building a 21-0 lead in the first quarter, not looking back. 31-point victory over the New Orleans Saints. Let's dive into the 3 up, 3 down. Just dished out game balls. Plenty of good players, though, to talk more about. And let's look at who's hot, who's on the upswing coming out of this game. And I want to start off with a player that had a fantastic training camp. Then he missed the season opener, and I think a lot of people forgot about what he did in July and August, what he did in the preseason. We got a reminder of what Dareke Young can really do for this team, and had his first catch since his rookie season. It was a first down converting catch, coming from Sam Darnold. So we got to see him get involved in the passing game, but he also had a 60-yard kick return in this contest as well, and had another return that he was close to busting later in the game. I just think, and I've been mentioning this since the new kickoff rules came out last year, I just think that this kid, with his running back background, he played running back early in his college career at Lenore-Ryan, his build, 6'2", 225, and just his strength and his ability to break tackles, I think he is the perfect player to use on the new kickoff that is a lot more like a running play. And he's got that decisiveness, shiftiness. He's got that physicality that I think you need to be really good on that new kickoff. And he is shining every opportunity that he's getting. Glad to see him rip that one off for 60 yards, set up a touchdown for the Seahawks. Another one directly impacted by special teams. He gets a first down catch on his first catch in 3 years, and I think you're going to see more from him as the season progresses. Clint Kubiak's going to find ways to get him snaps on offense, and he's going to be involved. He might get some carries out of the backfield or on jet sweeps as well. They're going to mix this guy in because he is such a dynamic athlete, and he's got versatility to his game that they don't really have with any of their other receivers. So I think you're going to keep seeing more from Dareke Young, and today was a kind of a taste what he can give you in special teams in the return game and what he could potentially give them on offense as well. On the defensive side of the football, Byron Murphy II, he was my runner-up this week, had his 3rd sack in 2 weeks, had a couple nice run stops as well. We are really seeing number 91 come into his own, and just by week is getting more and more confident. And it helps when you've got Jaron Reed and Leonard Williams next to you. And Mike Morris has been coming on strong as well. I considered Mike Morris for the 3 up, had a couple nice run stops on Alvin Kamara today. But to me, Byron Murphy II, he is kind of one of those engines that really has a chance to be that one of those guys that can take this defense to another level this year. We're starting to see that here with his pass rushing coming to life. His run defense has continued to be stout. He's a big reason why teams are struggling so much to run the football against the Seahawks these first 3 weeks, and it's been really hard on some good players as well. Number 91 is a big part of that for the Seattle Seahawks. And I'm going to stay on special teams with D'Anthony Bell as my last big winner from this game. And Bell didn't just contribute on special teams. It was kind of like Dareke Young as well. He blew up Alvin Kamara for a 1-yard tackle for a loss on a blitz on defense. He played quite a bit on that side of the ball as well, but he was a missile coming downhill, thumped Kamara in the backfield for a 1-yard loss, had the punt block as well, was involved as an assister on a couple special teams plays in kick punt coverage. I think D'Anthony Bell is really getting the job done every opportunity that he gets. Another player very similar to Dareke Young in the sense that he's going to be able to contribute on defense, and he's also going to be able to contribute on special teams when you need him. And with the plays he's making, Seattle might have to make a decision here. They did just put Jarek Reed on the active roster. Maybe D'Anthony Bell ends up getting the opportunity, but they still have one more game that they can elevate him as a game day elevation off the practice squad. But continue to see number 23 play well, had a good training camp and a good preseason, gets his opportunities with the injuries the Seahawks have had, and he comes in and picks up the slack. Next man up, check mark. Did it on defense, did it on special teams. Really strong game for him. As far as the downside, who's not? When you win by 31, it may be more difficult to find players or positional groups that didn't have great games. But as Mike Macdonald hinted after the game, there were areas for improvement coming out of this game. There were areas for growth. And the thing that jumped out to me the most, the run blocking was not good for most of today. The third quarter, the Seahawks got Ken Walker III going a little bit, but they had 8 rushing yards in the first half, 0.9 yards per carry in the first half. And a big part of that, it was the lack of run blocking up front. It just seemed like the Saints were selling out, and that burned them in the passing game some, but the offensive line was not creating horizontal or vertical displacement in this game. They were struggling to win off the snap, and it was allowing quick leaks into the backfield. Running backs didn't have a lot to work with. So that was maybe the biggest concern that I had coming out of this game. They are going to have to be much better against the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday night. They're going to need that run game to be able to get a third win in a row. George Halani staying with the run game. He gets his first extended opportunity in part because of Zach Charbonnet's injury and also the blowout, gets a lot of reps late, coughs up the football, though. When you're a backup running back, you're looking to seize your chances, and Quincy Riley hit his helmet on the ball, knocked it loose, fumble recovered by the Saints. There were some decent runs mixed in there, a couple decent receptions, so it's not like Halani had a bad game necessarily, but that fumble is going to loom large here. The Seahawks need their running backs to hold on to the football. He's certainly going to be kicking himself for that. You don't want to waste your opportunities and have turnovers, so that stood out as one of the big negatives on offense for the Seahawks today. And on the defensive side of the football, I'm going to highlight the edge rushers as my last who's not in this group. And it's not because I thought Boye Mafe and Derek Hall were non-factors or that they were not, visible in the game. There were certainly times that Derek Hall and Boye Mafe and DeMarcus Lawrence, all those guys were getting some pressure on Spencer Rattler, but the issue is still they're not finishing. There were a couple times Boye Mafe had Rattler lined up and he was able to get out of the pocket. Derek Hall missed a couple times. There was one I thought he was held blatantly on that they did not flag. But these guys are not getting the quarterback hits. They're not getting the sacks that you would like to see with the sheer number of pressures they're getting. It is a finish aspect, which most of this defense has been finishing plays. The edge guys, you're just not consistently getting that, at least in the pass rushing game. Those watching on YouTube, that's why you can see the picture that I had was Derek Hall just kind of in trailing position while Spencer Rattler threw the ball. These guys are just not quite able to get over the hump where a lot of these pressures are turning into hits and sacks. I think there's going to be a breakout game coming, but on a game where you dominated the way that the Seahawks did, it was tough, especially in the first half, to see the number of times that they had Spencer Rattler dead to right, and the edge guys were not able to finish plays. Mafe also had a tackle for loss in the backfield on a screen that he missed. So there were missed opportunities for that edge group that I think they're going to be looking back and saying again, this is something that's been a theme here early. Those guys are not, they're getting pressure. It's not like they are not doing what they need to do to put themselves in position to make plays. They're just not finishing them. So that's going to be something I think Mike Macdonald, the defensive coaching staff, they are going to zero in on coming out of this game, looking to make major improvements in that aspect to get after Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday night. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, it'll be a morning episode. I'm going to be dishing out some of my Monday musings. We'll also have a Monday mailbag questions from you, the 12s. Make sure to start sending those questions to me on X and Blue Sky, again, at Corbin Smith NFL, and I'll tackle as many of those as I can. Make sure that you're listening in and enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Go Hawks.